This next presentation is about digestion and absorption of the foods that we eat as we turn them into energy. There's two things that will initiate the urge to eat. It is hunger and appetite. Hunger is physiological. When an individual needs energy, their brain, and specifically the hypothalamus area of their brain, will trigger hunger. In addition to that, appetite is actually psychological, and this is triggered by senses, by individuals that we're around, such as family and friends, by our environment, and even by time of day. So two things that regulate whether we eat or not are hunger and appetite. Hunger being physiological. A couple of different things happen whether we feel hungry or full. Another word for full would be satiated. When we eat food, our stomach is actually distended, or it becomes larger, and blood glucose is increased. This will trigger the hormone of insulin to be secreted into the bloodstream to take care of the extra blood glucose, and that initiates a feeling of satiety. The same thing happens with a hormone called CCK. This is going to be secreted after we eat, and that will stimulate satiety as well, so that an individual is not hungry and doesn't feel the need to eat. So basically the opposite hormone is ghrelin, and what happens is when we eat, the hormone ghrelin will plummet after the meal, and as time passes after that meal, this hormone will increase again, and when it gets to a certain amount in the bloodstream, then an individual's appetite will be increased and will feel the need to eat. So if an individual has high ghrelin and low CCK, the person will feel hungry. Another hormone that's important is called leptin. And leptin is a hormone that's really a protein produced by the adipose cells. The more adipose a person has, the more leptin they will produce. When leptin is in the body, it will suppress hunger. It will decrease hunger. So it usually is made and secreted after we eat so that the hunger goes down. Unfortunately, for some obese people, they seem to be resistant to leptin, and that kind of person may feel always hungry, even though leptin's present. It may not be triggering the brain to shut down the hunger appetite. In addition, the amount and type of foods that we eat also impact hunger. If the foods we eat are nutrient dense, then the brain perceives that they have the nutrients they need to survive, such as fiber, vitamins, minerals, and healthy fat. The appetite will decrease. However, if the body is not perceiving healthy nutrients and really just has processed carbohydrates or empty calories in the system, then the person will continually feel hungry, even though there's food in the body, but will continually feel hungry in search of the healthy carbohydrates, fiber, vitamins, minerals, healthy fats. So it will continue to be hungry until we get them. So a person may eat a large amount of food, but if it's not nutrient-dense food with great nutrients in them, the person may still feel hungry. So the type of food we eat is important too. When we eat the whole foods, that will signal to the brain that we have the great nutrients in the body, and the hunger will kind of shut down. Now, in addition to the need for energy, and that's pretty much physiologically overseen by the hunger in the hypothalamus, there's something also psychological about food. So the smell of foods, the sight of foods, going to parties, holidays, even emotions like depression or sadness or happiness, that will all trigger a psychological desire to eat specific types of foods. One example would be going to a sporting event, such as a baseball game. Walk in and you smell the hot dogs, and you feel as if at a baseball game you should eat a hot dog, and then you want to eat a hot dog, where that might not be occurring at other time of day or other occasions. So the environment, even commercials, will influence psychologically what type of foods we eat. So it's important to know that appetite is psychological and hunger is physiological. The three things that occur in the gastrointestinal system that we'll study is digestion, absorption, and elimination. Digestion is when the foods are broken down into their component nutrients, mechanically and chemically. The absorption is the process by which those nutrients are actually taken out of the food and brought into the circulatory system through the small intestine. And then lastly is elimination, and that's when the undigested portions of food or waste are removed from the body. So these three things, digestion, absorption, and elimination, occur in the gastrointestinal system, and this is the process by which the nutrients are utilized by the metabolic system to create ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is actually the energy source of the body. This picture is an overview of the digestive system, and I'd like you to know the name of the organ, what it looks like, where it's located, and its function. Most importantly, we need to know the name of the organ and how it functions in the digestive system. One of the first things to know is that carbohydrate digestion begins in the mouth. Our teeth will start to grind down the food. And also the salivary glands will secrete enzymes into the mouth, and you can see there's numerous salivary glands in the mouth, and they will start to break down carbohydrates. After the food is broken down with the teeth and the salivary glands start to digest it, the individual will swallow that food, and now it's going to be known as bolus, and in this image you can see it as green in the picture. So we have two pipes in our throats. One is leading to the stomach and one leads to the lungs. The pipe that leads to the stomach is called the esophagus, and that's where we want the bolus to go. So in order for the bolus to go into the esophagus, a little flap of skin called the epiglottis needs to close off the trachea, and the trachea is that second pipe that leads to the lungs, and we don't want food in there, otherwise we would be choking, and if food was aspirated, we can even have risk of pneumonia. But so what will happen when a person swallows properly is the epiglottis will close off the trachea, and then the bolus will go through the esophagus on its way to the stomach. As it travels through the esophagus, the bolus will pass through another flap of skin called the cardioesophageal sphincter, and that's a one-way valve that will open up and allow the bolus to go into the stomach. And once in the stomach, that bolus is churned and ground down. In addition to churning and grinding down, in the stomach there's also acid that will start to break apart protein. So protein and carbohydrate digestion continue in the stomach. Not much fat digestion, but it does begin in the stomach. Most of it will occur in the small intestine. So the stomach is to churn and grind up the bolus. There's a large surface area in the stomach to do that. Once that is broken down, it passes through another sphincter. This one is called the pyloric sphincter. It's another one-way valve that will pass the bolus through and into the small intestine. As the bolus leaves the stomach through the pyloric sphincter, it now reaches the small intestine, and we can call this chyme now. So the food changes name to bolus, and now again changes name to chyme. And this is my favorite organ of the digestive system, the small intestine, because this is where the absorption of nutrients occur. And you can see on the image on the right, the small intestine is very large. It's about 10 feet long. And there's various parts, again, with large surface areas because we want to absorb as many nutrients, carbs, protein, fat, vitamins, and mineral water as possible as the chyme passes through. You can see on the image on the left, this is where the circulatory system and its blood vessels will actually enter into the digestive system in the small intestine to pull out those nutrients that are needed to survive. And so this is a very important organ. It's where all of the absorption occurs. This next image is of the large intestine. So once the chyme leaves the small intestine, it will go into the large intestine. It's a shorter organ, but a little bit wider. And the large intestine has two purposes: to reabsorb any nutrients that can still be utilized, including water. We can reabsorb water at this point and reuse that. And then as we get to the end of the large intestine, we're going to store the waste products before they're eliminated. The end of the large intestine is also called the colon. So if you hear that word, just know it's the end of the large intestine. In the colon, we will store the waste until it's ready to be eliminated, and that also includes the rectum, and then the anal canal will open to allow for elimination. From the moment the food is swallowed in the mouth through its elimination from the anal canal, it's a closed system. So the the gastrointestinal tract is a closed system. The only interactions with the body that will be through the blood vessels taking the nutrients out of the small intestine, and then a few other organs that help with the digestive system. Those are the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. So the liver actually makes bile, and bile is what's needed to digest the fat, most of which will occur in the small intestine. So the liver will make the bile. The bile will be stored in an organ called the gallbladder, which is green in this image. And it's going to be stored there until fat is eaten or consumed. And then when the body perceives there's fat in the stomach and small intestine, that bile will be secreted into the small intestine to break down the fat. And lastly, we also have this pancreas, and the pancreas is very important for carbohydrate digestion. The pancreas is going to make the insulin and glucagon, and when those hormones are needed, it will be secreted into the system to take care of the carbohydrates. So here's another overview of the digestive system, and what's most important in this lesson is to know the name of the organ, where it's located, and what its primary functions are. So take time now to look over this list of organs and make sure you know what the function or the primary functions of the organ is. You can pause if needed. Second primary lesson we need to learn from this lesson, and this is what your discussion question will be about, is in order to define different digestive disorders. Now there's many digestive disorders in existence. There's some allergies, there's some intolerances, and what's important to know is that a healthy diet and a stress-free life, avoidance of drugs, may prevent some of these digestive problems, and if they are occurring, the same thing as the management of them. So key to management is identifying what's causing the problem and then eliminating that cause or eliminating the etiology of the digestive disorder. Just taking medications and over-the-counter medicines might mask the symptoms, but it will never really get rid of the digestive disorder or cure it altogether. It might just calm the symptoms down. So what's important to know is for many different digestive disorders, what's the cause of those and how do we get rid of that cause? And for most digestive problems, healthy nutrition will prevent them, making sure we're eating whole, nutritious foods, getting enough fiber, and getting enough water. Avoiding the foods that cause problems like soda, too much caffeine, too much alcohol, maybe something you're allergic to or intolerant to. And the way to identify something that you're allergic or intolerant to a lot of times is to take a food diary and match that with the symptoms that you're having and see if you could correlate any times when specific foods are being eaten and you have digestive problems like stomachache or diarrhea or constipation or things like that. Also avoiding unnecessary drugs. Drugs of any sort will cause havoc on the digestive system, and that goes for alcohol, cigarettes, over-the-counter drugs, prescription drugs like pain pills or antibiotics will all cause digestive problems. So you should be aware of the side effects of those drugs and eliminate any unnecessary drugs which could potentially cause problems in the first place. And then finally, attaining and maintaining a healthy body composition. Individuals who are overweight or obese have more digestive disorders than not, so losing weight in those cases could eliminate some of the problems. And on this list, there's some common digestive disorders that I've listed. Many of them are in your textbook, and also you could Google to define. But for your discussion this week, I need you to select at least one of these to find what the digestive disorder is, and then determine what the etiology or cause of the problem is, and prevent that in the first place. But if the individual does have this, we would be able to manage it much better if we can identify what causes it. Perhaps eating healthy and avoiding the unhealthy foods is going to help, making sure we get enough fiber, enough water, avoiding any unnecessary drugs, and trying to maintain normal body composition.